الله تعالى وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا صدق الله العلي العظيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. صلى الله على النبي الأمي وآله صلى الله عليه وسلم. صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم يا كريم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, today we shall go through covenant number 155 from this kitab of the erudite scholar and the Gnostic Al-Imam Al-Arif Billah Abdul Wahhab Al-Sha'rani radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wardah. Today's topic is very important and which will take us, this is the penultimate covenant on the topic of marriage and tarbiyat awlad, disciplining children. And unfortunately, in this day and age, in every level of society, in every class of society, whether someone's a teacher or a student, a parent or a child, a murid or a sheikh, everyone's forgotten their roles and responsibilities and their rights, illa masha'Allah. And one of the things that we slack, and one of the things that there is weakness, which has a very negative impact on the future generations, is that parents have this kind of false notion that their child will, inshallah azza wa jal, grow up to become Imam Al-Ghazali, Imam Al-Razi, will become Imam Al-Sha'rani of his age, just by a few ta'weedat, amulets and incantations, without any effort, without ensuring that their child's upbringing is done in an Islamic environment, without putting an effort to ensure that every single morsel of food that is fed to the child is halal and absolutely halal. And I myself, being in this teaching field for quite some time now, have experienced the fact that there's a stark contrast between children and students who used to come before and students who come to learn now. The students who used to come before, the greatest element that was actually the driving force and had made it easy for them to learn and acquire knowledge was adab and respect. Adab and respect with the teacher, adab and respect with the stationery with which they write, adab and respect with the books and literature, adab and respect with their class fellows, adab and respect of the environment in which they are being taught. Because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them knowledge. Their hearts were open towards knowledge. Unfortunately, what's happening now, parents want their child to become an alim. वालिदैन चाहते हैं कि हमारा बच्चा आलिम दीन बने, हाफिज कुरान बने, दीन को आगे पहुंचाने वाला बने, दीन पर उसको इस्तिकामत हासिल हो, लेकिन उन्हें कुछ मेहनत करनी है नहीं. समझते कि इंशाल्लाह हमारा बच्चा खुद ब खुद अपनी तबीई और फितरी तौर पर आलिम दीन बन जाएगा, सूफी बन जाएगा, औलिया किराम में से बन जाएगा. Whereas if you look at history and if you look at ulama and their upbringing, ulama have been produced and awliya have been produced because of the tarbiyah behind them. Behind every single wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, behind every single great erudite alim, preeminent scholar that Islam has seen, the greatest effort was of the parents. If the parents nurture their children in Islamic environment, ensure that all that they do is absolutely halal, and they keep them away and distance from haram, inshallah Azza wa Jal, it will have very good positive impact and effects on the child and his behavior and his upbringing, or her upbringing, because it's both, obviously. And I will, inshallah, today, you were asking me, inshallah, before about the rights of children, to finish it, inshallah, I will finish it today, inshallah Azza wa Jal. So if you want to leave at the end, you can do, but I will, inshallah Azza wa Jal, today we'll go through the rights of the children on their parents, and what Al-Azhari rahmatullah has mentioned in regards to the importance of child upbringing and ensuring that they are disciplined. Discipline is the key to education. You know, I'm not talking about my class, but I'm talking general, illa mashallah, obviously. This is again with the exceptions. Children are in their teen years, and they need the essential knowledge before they graduate, in inverted commas that is, obviously, before they leave madrasa. And instead of teaching them about tafsir, hadith, fiqh, sunnah, seerah, akhlaq, etc., morality, good character, we have to revert back to the basics, and teaching them about adab and respect. I mean, there are teachers here, mashallah, who are sat here today, and you will vouch for this, and you will probably corroborate what I'm saying, this statement of mine. That instead of you spending your vital time and the time of other people who come to enroll themselves in madrasa to learn, you're actually teaching them about discipline. At the age of 14 and 15, the child's reached the age of 14 and 15, and you're teaching them about discipline, about how to actually talk with their teacher, how to behave in class. This should have already been taught, and this should have been ingrained in their innate disposition and in their fitrah from the very beginning. By whom? By the first school that they attend, which is the parents. But the unfortunate thing is, as with everything and as lack in everything, knowledge has become scarce. There's prevalence, widespread ignorance everywhere. Parents don't fulfill their rights and responsibilities, and they want to then ensure, and they have this dream that their child will graduate from madrasa after 5 years, having been crowned with the crown of alimiyyat and a scholarly figure, inshallah Azza wa Jal. He stand out to become a Sufi, stand out to become a Hafidh of the Quran, without any adab. Without adab, that is the foundation. At-ta'deeb, this is the foundation of knowledge. And this is why I recommend people to read, especially students of the sacred knowledge, and as you as parents, to teach your child from this kitab, the adab of knowledge, from Imam Burhanuddin Az-Zarnuji rahimahullah's kitab, beautiful book on adab, which is written Ta'limul Muta'allim Tariqat Ta'allum, which has also been translated in the English language by the name of the path to knowledge. And the amount of adab that's required as a prerequisite to learning the sacred knowledge. Imam Malik rahimahullah, his mother sent him first and foremost to an ustad for adab and respect, to learn about mannerisms and discipline, good character. And Imam Malik rahimahullah used to then say that if only all of my years were spent learning adab, because what I got from adab I couldn't have got just by my effort to learn the sacred knowledge from the books and from the teachers. Because what a man gets is from adab. What a person receives and attains from the spiritual world is from adab. Ba adab ba nasib, be adab be nasib. So let me start. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أخذ علينا العهد العام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أن نؤدب أولادنا الذكور والإناث ولا نكل تأديب البنات إلى أمهن جملة كما عليه بعضهم لا سيما إن كنا أعلم بالأدب من الأم. He says, he mentions here, this covenant has been taken from us, which reaches the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously, the covenant is the Muhammadan covenant, al-Uhud al-Muhammadiyah, reaches the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you pledge allegiance with the Shaykh. Talking about pledging allegiance with a Shaykh and bay'ah, I have this entire kitab. I'm going to read an excerpt from this. This is an essential read for every single person who is either a murid or who wants to be a wannabe Shaykh. And he will not wannabe Shaykh, a true Shaykh. Apologies. Al-Anwar al-Qudsiyya fi ma'rifati qawa'id as-Sufiyya. The the discipline, the fundamental laws and principles that govern the Sufis and Sufism in itself. The science of tasawwuf. What does becoming a murid entail? What does becoming a sheikh entail? What are the requirements that the Sharia and Tariqah require from each other? So he says this covenant, obviously pledging allegiance with my shaykh, which reaches the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a promise. The promise is this: أن نؤدب أولادنا الذكور والإناث, that we discipline our male and female children, that we discipline, that we teach them good manners. Who? Our sons and our daughters equally. And more so, especially in this day and age, our daughters. The daughters are the mothers of tomorrow. When the first school, which is the lap of the mother, is firm and intact and steadfast, and the school has been molded in an Islamic ethos, alhamdulillah, it will have a direct good impact and effect on the children that are being nourished under the tarbiyah, direct tarbiyah of the mothers. In many a times, I mentioned to you on Friday about Sayyiduna Shaykh al-Mashayikh, Nizamuddin Awliya Mahbubi Ilahi radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Wallahi, read his biography and the tarbiyah that was done by his mother. Because he was orphaned at a very young age. When he was 5 years of age, his father left this mundane world. This is probably a sunnah ilahiyah with many of the awliya, like Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani radiallahu ta'ala, and many other great awliya, that their fathers had passed away at a very young age, so the tarbiyah and the responsibility of their upbringing was on the shoulders of their mother. And their mothers were the greatest awliya of their time. They produced awliya. Our mothers, illa masha'Allah, mothers in society, they know how to beautify themselves. They've made their homes into a beauty parlor, basically. They know the latest fragrances. They know the latest branded clothing. They know where to shop and how much to shop. They're very expert in terms of worldly things, but in terms of the deen, their knowledge is very shallow. So what do we expect these homes nurturing? Nurturing what? Nurturing Imam Al-Ghazali's? No. Nurturing King Kongs probably. Yani wannabe bad boys. This is a truth, but it is harsh, but truth is always bitter. Like medication. Mostly. MashaAllah. So وَلَا نَكِلَ تَأْدِيبَ الْبَنَاتِ إِلَى أُمِّهِنَّ جُمْلَةً كَمَا عَلَيْهِ بَعْضُهُم. We should not entrust, we should not completely rely on the mothers to nurture and discipline the daughters. As many homes, in many households, this is the case. आप बच्ची की तरबियत करें, वो बच्ची है. बाप कहता है कि माँ का ज़्यादा हक है कि वो बच्ची की तरबियत करे. नहीं, बाप का ज़्यादा हक है कि वो बच्चों की भी और बच्चियों की भी यकसा तरबियत करें. خصوصا لا سيما إن كنا أعلم بالأدب من الأم, especially in the case when we have more knowledge about tarbiyah and ta'deeb and disciplining the children than the mother. When we have more knowledge, then the onus is on as a father, as a breadwinner of the family, as the most responsible figure in the family, to nurture the children, to give them the Islamic knowledge, to nurture them in an Islamic environment, to give them the true Islamic moral character and discipline. Give them the prophetic character, basically. Mold them in the prophetic character and akhlaq al-nabawiyya. And I also recommend one kitab that people should read in the home as a family reading, volume 16, chapter 16 of Bahar Shariat, which is also known as Islamic Akhlaq wa Adab, Islamic moral characters and discipline. Wallahi, we are in a society where people don't understand the rights of each other. Children don't know how to speak to the elders. Elders don't know how to show compassion and affection to the youngsters. Students don't know how to respect the teacher. The teachers don't fulfill their rights and responsibilities. The murid don't know how to respect their shuyukh. The shuyukh don't know the rights and responsibilities that are binding on them as a shaykh, and how they should nurture and take care of the Islamic upbringing of their muridun and their disciples and the aspirants who have sworn an oath of allegiance at their hands that they be taken to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a topsy-turvy society. And in order to reform society, in order to bring back the success and the glory that once Islamic society has had, we all need to understand our rights, our roles and our responsibilities. Parents first and foremost, their rights and their right and their responsibility of nurturing their children obviously starts with them learning and acquiring the sacred knowledge, attending gatherings of sacred knowledge, understanding what is halal and what is haram, so that they can disseminate this knowledge to their children. If they don't know themselves what is halal and what is haram, how on earth are they going to teach their children? An angel is not going to descend in their homes on Blackburn Road or Halliwell Road, teaching and nurturing their children. The parents have this grave responsibility, and wallahi they will be, and we will all be, as parents, be held accountable for our tarbiyah. كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَمَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is responsible, is a guardian, and you will be held accountable, and you will be questioned Yawm al-Qiyamah with regards to your responsibility, how much you fulfilled it, to what degree. And then he says, وَهَذَا بَابٌ قَدْ أَغْفَلَهُ غَالِبُ النَّاسِ حَتَّى صَارَ الْوَلَدُ الْأَمْرُ يَجْلِسُ يَلْغُو بَيْنَ الرِّجَالِ الْأَكَابِرِ يَمْزَحُ. Many a people are heedless of this covenant to the extent that parents will not be bothered. He mentions here about Al-Amrad. Amrad are children who are very handsome, young, beardless, obviously. I'm not saying obviously, because with a beard, alhamdulillah, it adds to your beauty and handsomeness. Alhamdulillah. These young children who are allowed to roam freely amongst older people, they mess around with them, joke with them, they waste their time. Al-Amrad is not allowed to intermingle with the elders. This is the ruling of the Sharia. We don't even know about that. وَلَا شَكَّ أَنَّ الْأَبَ الْمَسْئُولُ عَنْ ذَلِكَ. And there is no shadow of doubt, there is not even a shadow of doubt on the fact that the father is responsible for this. فَعَلَيْهِ الْأَمْرُ لِوَلَدِهِ بِالْخَيْرِ وَيَبْقَى التَّوْفِيقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. The father is responsible to constantly inculcate good character in his child, in his children, and to constantly guide them towards the path of truth, and to forbid them from evil, to enjoin good and to forbid evil. As for them guiding themselves on the straight path, it is up to Allah. It is the tawfiq comes from Allah. Guidance is ultimately from whom? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He has made this world as alamul asbab, the world of causes, the world of effects, that you do something and it happens. If you want your child to become a hafiz of the Quran, you as a parent have the responsibility to ensure that your child wakes up on time, that your child has good company. If you expect your child to become an alim ad-deen, you ensure that your child attends gatherings of the sacred knowledge. His company is good, because a good company has a good effect. A bad company has a diverse negative effect on the child's character. Even though he may be in madrasa for 2 hours, spending time in the vicinity of the mosques, learning the knowledge, at the end what will happen is, if he has bad company, the bad traits will mirror in his own character. So you graduate that person as a hafiz of the Quran or as an alim of the deen, the graduate scholar, and he doesn't even pray his namaz punctually on time. That you will see him roaming around in marketplaces, in the shopping malls, whereas he will not have the tawfiq to come to the mosque and learn the basic necessities of the deen. He will stand on the musalla and he will be bereft of the sacred knowledge, understanding the do's and don'ts in salah. What things break, nullify the prayer. So, on a very serious note, I know my emotions are speaking now, but this is very, very important. And if everyone understands their responsibilities, we would have a better society. We want to reform the society in the Middle East. We want to reform the Middle East. We're not even reformed our own society. Blackmore Road and Halliwell Road is in a digressed situation. We are in a regression here, and we're talking about the depressed state of other people over there. So we as parents and everyone as Muslims, we should understand our roles and responsibilities. So he says here, وَقَدْ أَدْرَكْنَا النَّاسَ وَهُمْ يُؤَدِّبُونَ أَوْلَادَهُمْ لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. Imam Sha'rani rahmatullah is talking about his age when there was scarce media exposure. There was no media. Cameras weren't there, the iPhone wasn't there, the iPads weren't there, the iPods weren't there, the iPads or whatever exists weren't there. These smartphones weren't there. There was no internet access. There was no www.fitna.com. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no WhatsApp, nothing. But even then he says here, we found and we met many people who constantly, by day and by night, they are engaged in disciplining their children. Obviously not in a harsh manner. You need to understand this. I'm going to mention this in light of what Al-Azhari mentioned, and how to do tarbiyah, not to be too harsh. Because if you become too harsh, then it's a repellent. They don't follow you. They won't obey you. They will deem you as an enemy. The safe haven of the home will then turn out to be hell. They won't want to come at home. So there's things that we need to understand that I'm going to mention later on. So he said, وَلَا يَكْتَفُونَ بِالْفَقِيهِ أَوِ الْمُعَلِّمِ. They did not suffice just on the teacher or just on the muallim to teach them, as we are doing as parents. Send our kids 5 till 7, and even then when the child is wrong, we are taking the side of the child. The teacher says he needs to be disciplined. The teacher says he needs to come on time. The teacher says he's got bad behavior. The teacher says he's engaged in vulgar talk. The teacher says he's swearing, using abusive language and obscene language. But the parents say, no, my child is a superstar. My child is a superman. My child is as clean as the piece of white cloth that comes out of the dishwasher. Not the dishwasher, obviously, the washing machine. You'll be lucky to get a white piece of cloth from a dishwasher. Taking sides, this ain't the way to nurture children. This has a negative reverse effect on the psychological development of the child as well. The child will think, oh, I can do whatever I want because I'll call my dad and he'll just come and he'll just shout at the mashallah, sincere voluntary committee members and the mudarrisin, the teachers. This is not tarbiyah. This is takhrib. This is destroying your child's moral development. فَإِنَّ قَلْبَ الْأَجْنَبِيِّ عَلَى الْوَلَدِ لَيْسَ كَقَلْبِ الْوَالِدِ. And then he mentions, why did these families spend days and their nights, day and night, 24/7, constantly spending their times and their efforts on disciplining the child? Why? Because they said the heart of the muallim, the heart of the teacher or the faqih, is not like the heart of the father. The father has emotions. The father has this right, has this connection with the child, which the teacher doesn't have with the child. Even though the teacher is al-abur, the spiritual father of the child, and has a greater rank than the biological father of the child, than the physical father of the child. You should understand this. The muallim has a greater rank, has a greater right, has a greater status than the father of the child. But the heart of the father is subhanAllah. He wants the child to learn. He wants the child to behave. He wants his sons and his daughters to become minarets and minarets of guidance for the future generations. وقد كان أخي الشيخ عبد القادر لا يجلس قط بين رجال حتى دارت لحيته. My friend Shaykh Abdul Qadir rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah, he never sat amongst men until his beard grew. Yani his father nurtured him. This was the tarbiyah. The father didn't let him sit with amongst undisciplined, uncivilized, backward old men and mess around with them. وَلَمَّا تَزَوَّجَ مَكَثَ نَحْوَ سَنَةٍ لَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَى مُجَالَسَةِ وَالِدٍ. This was the adab that he had after he got married. He had so much haya and modesty with his father that for an entire year he could not sit with his father. He was so much awestruck and he had so much other adab and discipline with his father. I was told that in India, I don't know if it happens now, probably not, that there was a time when a father used to enter the home, the children, all of the family members used to stand up and the children would not sit until the father would instruct them to sit. This was the adab that they had. But because we are fed with doubtful food, our nourishment is on haram or doubtful food, we are exposed to haram, we are embracing haram, we sit around in the company of people who are promoting haram, then obviously this is going to have a negative effect on us, as children, and us as parents, and then obviously our forthcoming children. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. وَمَا طَلَعَ وَالِدُهُ وَلَا أُمُّهُ قَطُّ عَلَى غُسْلِهِ مِنَ الْجَمَدِ. There's so much adab that he had. They were living in the same home, the parents obviously, and the the son and the daughter-in-law. They were living in the same home. His father never once observed or noticed him going to the bathroom to perform the ghusl for janaba. This was so much adab that he had. Tarbiyah. Conversely speaking, what happens, he mentions here, وَرَأَى سَيِّدِي عَلِيٌّ خَوَاسِ. What happens in our homes? In our homes, we made our homes into cinemas. Huge 18-inch plasma screen, TV screens that we have in our homes, in the bedrooms of our children. And then we expect them to be Nat Khans, to be Ashike Rasul, to be Ulama Rabbaniyin. Keep on dreaming, hashtag, keep on dreaming. The reality is we are destroying them. Okay? Shaykh Ali Khawas rahimahullah, he saw a man, shakhsan min awlad al-ulama, from the children of the ulama. I'm going to talk about children of the ulama and children of certain mashayikh who deem themselves so big that they don't need tarbiyah. They deem themselves independent of going to a shaykh to learn about discipline, about adab. دخل الحمام مع والد زوجته في جمعة الدخول بها. He entered in the midst of the public. What used to happen before? They didn't have bathrooms, let alone ensuite bedrooms that they have connected adjacent to it are bathrooms. Yeah, as we have in our homes. Yeah, a bathroom within the home. They used to have hammamat. Hammamat, yani public bathrooms. They had to go there, whether it was ghusl for janaba, ghusl for jum'ah. He was seen publicly going with his father-in-law in the jum'ah after he had consummated the marriage, after having conjugal relationships with his wife. He then entered with his father-in-law into the hammamat. Yani, this is the pinnacle of immodesty, that you're exposing to people that what you've done. This is what is meant here. And haya is gone. If that was the case of certain people at that time, what about haya and modesty levels in this day and age? Where we see the mothers of today, okay, or the sisters of today, then going to become mothers of tomorrow, wearing and scantily dressed, as the Prophet ﷺ said, كَاسِيَاتٌ عَارِيَاتٌ مَائِلَاتٌ مُمِيلَاتٌ. Women, the Prophet ﷺ said, women, they will see women in the latter days, sign of Qiyamah, who will be dressed, yet they will be naked. The Prophet ﷺ said this, كَاسِيَاتٌ عَارِيَاتٌ مَائِلَاتٌ مُمِيلَاتٌ. They will deem themselves to have clothed themselves with items of clothing, yet they will be naked. مَائِلَاتٌ مُمِيلَاتٌ. Enticing others like Satan does towards evil, and they themselves going towards evil, promoting evil. And then that day when the child runs out of the house, where the son and the daughter runs out from your home and doesn't listen to you, you have nothing but to cry, you have nothing but regret and remorse. Because the years in which you should have done the tarbiyah, where you should have been the role model in the family, where your child looks at you praying salah on the musalla. When it's the adhan, you go to the mosque. You are bringing that son in the masjid. You are ensuring that the child prayed namaz next to you. You didn't do that. And now you whinge and you want the Baba Sahib to blow on you. And then the revolutionary impact on the child, apart from that, apart from regretting, remorse and shedding tears, crocodile tears, you have nothing else. Because we muddled up our priorities. Our priority was dunya instead of nurturing the children. We used to work 9 till 5 plus overtime, and we didn't spend time with our children. We didn't give them the time. They didn't feel that there was a fatherly figure over them. You didn't give importance to your children, so when they run away, there is no one's to blame but yourself. Allahu Akbar. فَأَنْكَرَ ذَلِكَ غَايَةَ الْإِنْكَارِ. He completely refuted him, and he completely showed his expression of inkar, of hatred and disliking of what had happened. وقال إذا كان هذا حال أولاد العلماء فكيف بغيرهم. And then he said, if this is the state of the children of the ulama, then what to talk about other people? When the ulama's children are like this, immodest, have no shame and modesty, then what do you think about other people? وسمعت مرة يقول. But there is a hikmah behind this. I'm going to mention this. وَسَمِعْتُ مَرَّةً يَقُولُ I heard him one day, he was saying, إِنَّمَا كَانَ غَالِبُ أَوْلَادِ الْأَوْلِيَاءِ وَالْعُلَمَاءِ لَا حَيَاءَ فِيهِمْ. The overwhelming majority and most often the direct descendants and the progeny and the children of the ulama and the awliya, they have no haya in them. You are saying their father was a great alim. Their father was a great wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he's saying, la haya fihim. They don't have any modesty in them. They are very far from discipline, from adab. Wala adaba, wala fadilata. And they don't have any virtue and merit in them. No any sign of excellence in them. Why? لأنهم عكارة ظهور آبائهم حين تصفو من الكدورات. Because they are the dirt from the loins of their father when they had cleansed themselves of all the base desires. So he says, فَنَزَلَ ذَلِكَ فِي نُطْفَةِ أَوْلَادِهِمْ. This then was transferred in the fluid that then obviously developed the embryo, that then developed into the child, into their own son. That was the dirt that was ridden, that was taken away and expelled from their bodies when they had cleansed their entire body physically and spiritually from all the vices, from all the evils. So they then become the embodiment of evil. And you will see this. And obviously from being from a family of ulama, there are great requirements. But unfortunately, we don't see that in many families. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us all steadfast with adab and with respect and with fadila and with ilm and with falah and salah and taqwa and amal, inshaAllah azza wa jal. بِخِلَافِ أَوْلَادِ الْفَلَّاحِينَ وَالْعَوَامِ. As opposed to and in contrast to the children of peasants and farmers and businessmen and the laymen. Why? الغالب عليهم اكتساب الفضائل لموت آبائهم من غير تصفية. Because their fathers died without cleansing themselves, the dirt the residue wasn't deposited in their children. These vices didn't enter their children. So then what happens? You will see the children of peasants, of businessmen, of laymen. Their fathers weren't ulama. They become great ulama. They become great awliya. They become great mashayikh. Whereas you would have expected the children of the ulama to become ulama. Obviously there are rare cases, rare circumstances. I'll give you a prime example. The family of Al-Azhari rahmatullahi. His father was a great scholar, was a great wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His grandfather, Allama Razali Khan Ahmad, was a great alim, was a great father. His own children, Huzur Mufti Azam Hind, Huzur Hujjat Islam, were great ulama, great awliya. Their grandsons, Huzur Mufassir Azam, were great awliya, ulama. Even today, Huzur Taj al-Sharia al-Makhtaraza, at the pinnacle of taqwa, at the pinnacle of ilm. They're rare cases. They're rare cases. ذَلِكَ الْفَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. That is the grace of Allah. He gives it to whomsoever He wishes. And we see in certain families of the mashayikh as well. But predominantly speaking, most of the children who hail from a scholarly background, from a scholarly family, they don't turn out to become ulama. And people who are businessmen, people whose fathers are businessmen, who are normal workers, they then become ulama and mashayikh. And I'm going to mention this point. Obviously, I was going to mention, you will have to bear with me, inshallah. Okay, just a few points, inshallah. Very important points I'm going to mention from this kitab, Al-Anwar al-Qudsiyya fi Ma'rifati Qawaid al-Sufiyya, written by Imam Sha'rani himself, rahmatullahi, on the downfall of tasawwuf that he saw in the degrading situation of the Sufis and the Mashaykh that he saw in his age. He penned this kitab in which he puts down the usul, the qawaid of who do you call, if you call yourself a shaykh, what are your requirements? If you want to become an aspirant in a spiritual order, a murid, what are the requirements of a murid? What should a murid do? Who should a murid be like? Who is a murid? Who is a shaykh? So he mentions this in this kitab. One of the points he mentions here is this: وَمِنْ شَأْنِهِ أَلَّا يَقْنَعَ فِي طَرِيقِ فَقْرِهِ بِالْآبَاءِ وَالْجُدُودِ كَمَا عَلَيْهِ أَوْلَادُ غَالِبِيَّةِ الْمَشَايِخِ. From the status, from the way of the disciple is that he should not suffice on just inheriting Sufism and inheriting the Zawiyah and the Khanqah and becoming a Sheikh just by inheritance from his father, because his father was a Sheikh or his grandfather was a Sheikh, he then turns out to be a Sheikh. He should not suffice on that. Yes, people will respect him because he hails from the family and he is the children of their Sheikh, of their spiritual guide. But he should not suffice on that. And then he says, as is predominant and as is dominant in many children of the Mashayikh. They just say, mere baap bade peer the. मेरे बाप जो है और मेरे दादा बड़े शेख थे, तो मैं भी बड़ा शेख बन गया हूँ, मुझे किसी की तरबियत बरबियत की जरूरत नहीं, मुझे इल्म सीखने का नहीं, मैं तो बड़ा अल्लामा बन गया हूँ. वला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाह. That just sums it up, doesn't it? That cough. Ish. بل يجب عليه أن يتخذ له شيخا يربيه. But rather it is necessary on the children of Mashayikh. If your father was a peer or a sheikh of a spiritual order, it is even more necessary on you to then go to a sheikh to learn about discipline, to learn about adab and manners before you sit on the mashikhat, on the throne of tariqah. Before you hail yourself and call yourself on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere, you call yourself as a sheikh, you need to first and foremost understand what are the requirements of a sheikh. Who do you call a sheikh? فَلَيْسَتِ الْمَشِيخَةُ بِالْإِرْثِ إِنَّمَا هِيَ بِالْجِدِّ وَالْإِجْتِهَادِ. Listen to this, this should be written in gold. Mashikhat, being a sheikh, is not inherited. You cannot inherit to become a sheikh. It is not something that is passed down in your genes. If your father was an alim, if your father was a sheikh, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will turn out to be a sheikh or an alim. It does not give you the eligibility or the liability to become a sheikh. You have to have the ilm, you have to have ijtihad and juhd. You have to put an effort and you have to strive, you have to do mujahada. And you have to acquire the knowledge. You can't just say, okay, my father was a great alim deen, so I expect people to give me the same protocol, give me the same pomp and glory that my father received. No. You have to have ijtihad, bil jiddi wal ijtihad. He says this, فَلَيْسَتِ الْمَشِيخَةُ بِالْإِرْثِ إِنَّمَا هِيَ بِالْجِدِّ وَالْإِجْتِهَادِ. And then he says, وَكَانَ الرَّازِيُّ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ يَقُولُ. He quotes the great Sufi Al-Razi rahimahullah, who used to say, لَا يَنْبِغِي لِلشَّيْخِ أَنْ يُبَادِرَ لِأَخْذِ الْعَهْدِ عَلَى أَوْدَالِ الْمَشَايِخِ المتمشيخين بالآباء والجدود إلا بعد امتحانهم في الصدق في طالب الطريق ودخولهم أمره ونهيه. Shaykh Al-Razi rahimahullah says, a sheikh should not allow the children of the mashayikh to become his murids only after examining them, only after scrutinizing them and their character. And only after he understands that they follow his commands and his prohibitions, that they stay away from things that he prohibits them to stay away from, and they follow his commands. Because he says, فَإِنَّ غَالِبَهُمْ, because most of the children of mashayikh, most of the sons of those whose fathers were ulama and mashayikh, deem themselves يَرَى نَفْسَهُ أَفْضَلَ مِنْ جَمِيعِ الْمَشَايِخِ الظَّاهِرِينَ فِي عَصْرِهِ مِمَّنْ لَيْسَ لَهُ سَلَفٌ فِي الْمَشِيخَةِ. Many of these people deem themselves superior and assert superiority to themselves, to the mashayikh who are in their era, whose fathers may not necessarily have been mashayikh or ulama. The children say, we are better than that sheikh because my father was this, my father was that. But you ask them, who are you? What are you? You can't just boast about and blow the trumpet in regards to your father. My father was like this, my father was like that. My father used to fly high in the air. My father used to walk on water. What are you? What can you do? Can't even probably swim even with armbands on. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. So this is what he mentions. So I'm just going to finish here at the end, inshallah Azza wa Jal, with what Imam Sha'rani rahmatullah mentions. فأدب يا أخي ولدك ولا تغفل عنه وإن كنت شيخ زاوية. So, oh my brother, discipline your children. Nurture them in an Islamic environment. Teach them adab and mannerisms. You know, sometimes you go to people's home. I'm not talking about myself, I'm generally talking about people. They don't even know how to entertain the guests. They don't even know how to do salam. They don't even know how to speak to their guests. It's the father who's bringing the food in. It's the father who's putting the shoes in order in the passageway. The children should do this. Because you've not taught your children about this, the children should be making the guests, allowing them to wash their hands, holding the water spout or the water jug and pouring water into their hands. It is the children who should come and greet them with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you? Are you feeling comfortable? Do you need some more food? Etc. etc. This is training that happens. Even if you are the Shaykh of a Zawiya, you should still teach adab and respect to your children. فَعَلِّمْهُمْ كَيْفَ يَتَلَقَّى الْوَارِدِينَ مِنَ الْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْعُلَمَاءِ وَالْأُمَرَاءِ وَمَشَائِخِ الْقُرَى وَغَيْرِهِمْ. Teach them how to welcome those people who come to your Zawiya, to your Khanqah, to your, Khanqah and Zawiya. There used to be a Sufi lodge. And the Shaykh used to sit there and teach the disciples about adab and respect, and used to purify their souls because their hearts were purified. From the fuqara, ulama, umara, and the rich men, and the governors, and the scholars, and the mashayikh from the villages who come to visit him, the Shaykh, teach your child how to welcome them, those mashayikh. Teach them how they should go to outside and welcome them. And how they should carry their shoes. And teach them how they should show them into the home, into the Sufi lodge with adab and respect. Teach them how they should present water to them. Some people don't even know how to hold a glass of water. They hold it like this. Whereas you should hold it like this. Mannerisms. وَعَلِّمْهُ آدَابَ الضِّيَافَةِ. Teach them the etiquettes of hosting, entertaining a guest. Hosting a guest at your home, what are the etiquettes? That you allow them to sit in and then you just flee and go upstairs or hide behind the sofa. Or go on your PS4 and start playing it. And your guest is there waiting for you to present water to them. Obviously not if you're nabalig. Just remember that rule. Teach them مكافأة الناس على هداياهم, how to requite people, how to exchange gifts, and how if someone has gifted you something, how you give something better in return. وعدم ادخار شيء عن الضيف, and how teach them how not to hoard wealth and keep it away from the guest. That you keep the nice juicy loosey roasted and roasted chicken for yourself, and you give bacon and gobi, which is aubergines and leeks, to your guests. وَعَدَمَ تَكَلُّفِهِ بِهِ وَعَدَمِ تَكَلُّفِ لَهُ, and how you should also train your son and your family members how not to be pretentious, how not to pretend to entertain the guests with a fake smile, how not to overburden themselves with too much, because what will happen, وَأَخْبِرْهُ بِأَنَّ مَنْ تَكَلَّفَ لِلضَّيْفِ سَوْفَ يَهْرُبُ وَلَوْ عَلَى طُولٍ. What will happen if someone does takalluf? Yani he prepares so much food, his heart is not there. His heart saying, Allah, this guest, tension to you. Guests knock on the door, if they ring the bell, you hide behind the sofas, but majbooran, they've seen you, they've seen your shadow, they've rang you before 5 minutes, so you can't hide anyway, you have to open the door. So you feel your heart's throbbing. Palpitations have started. Allahu Akbar, what's going to happen? And we have to prepare the starters, the desserts, the croissants. By the way, croissant is Jazakallah. I have to prepare chicken and meat and vegetable and what else do you have? Come on, pan masala and tea at the end. All of this 10-course menu. This is takalluf. This is overburdening yourself, and this is actually pretentious. You're faking it. So don't fake it when you entertain your guests. Present to them whatever you can present to them. Whatever is within your capacity. Because he says those people who go to the extreme limits and overburden themselves, what will happen? The guests will themselves flee away from the guests will never return back to them. وَلَوْ عَلَى طُولٍ. Even if it's after many months or after many years, they will then leave them. They will never return back to you. Because the mu'amala that you should have with your guests is the mu'amala of the heart, that you are happy to serve your guests. Not that you are puffing and panting and you've got perspiration in your head and it's trickling down your cheeks and the guests can't even see it because you brought chapati from here, desserts from here, papad from there, naan khatai from there, pan from here, you were circling the chamcha in the cauldron, ensuring that these juicy chicken pieces were melted and were, what do you call them, cooked properly. Yeah. So no, none of this business. Have ikhlas in your heart. This is what's important. وَأْمُرْهُ بِإِجْلَالِ جَمَاعَةِ وَالِدِهِ وَبِمَحَبَّتِهِمْ وَالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَيْهِمْ, and also command them to respect, honor and to revere the father's friends. Because when someone respects the father's friends, he is in essence respecting the father. One of the rights of the father is that you respect his friends. Friends who are close to your father and who are close to your father. And that you command your child to respect your friends, and as a father, your friends, to love them and to be good to them, to extend favors to them. وَإِيثَارِهِمْ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ فِي الْمَأْكَلِ وَالْهَدَايَا وَغَيْرِ ذَلِكَ. And that you ensure and you command your child to give preference to your friends in terms of eating, in terms of food, and in terms of gifts. So that he doesn't take the good gifts to himself, or he doesn't quickly take away their botis. If there's a dish, a huge dish in which your friends and he has a father and your child is eating, he doesn't quickly eat the samosas. He doesn't pounce on those chicken legs. That he is in a calm, in a very serene, in a very calm mode, and he allows them to eat first. He's not covetous, he's not greedy, he's not someone who has been killed by a gluttony, a big appetite. That he gives preference to them over himself. وَذَلِكَ لِيَعْكِفُ عَلَيْهِ بَعْدَ وَالِدِهِ حَتَّى يَظْهَرَ لَهُ فَضْلُهُ. This, the reason why you should nurture your children, especially if you're a sheikh, why you should nurture your child in this manner is that when you pass away, the mashayikh, your friends who are mashayikh, will then nurture your child and give him excellence until your child rises at the seat of excellence. He becomes a sheikh himself, so that they frequent their visits to him. If your child is very ill-mannered, doesn't respect them when they come to the Zawiya, then they will say Allah Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz, Al-Wada, or Au revoir. I will stop at here, inshallah Azza wa Jal. I will continue later on. I've not finished. But inshallah Azza wa Jal, next week, if you give me more time, inshallah Azza wa Jal, we will complete this. It's very important for us to understand this. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ. صلى الله على النبي الأمي وآله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم ربنا آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكيها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها فاغفر لها. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة والفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. اللهم استرنا بسترك الجميل. اللهم استر عوراتنا وآمن روعاتنا. اللهم نقي قلوبنا من الحقد والحسد ولا تجعل علينا تباعة لأحد. اللهم يا رب بجاه نبيك المصطفى ورسولك المرتضى طهر قلوبنا من كل وصف يباعدنا عن مشاهدتك ومحبتك وأمتنا على السنة والجماعة والشوق إلى لقائك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اقرأوا الفاتحة. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. صلى الله على النبي الأمي وآله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة وسلاما عليك يا رسول الله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.